Sunk costs, that's a human psychological thing, like fear of loss, commitment, consistency, and all these things come into it, which will then trap the person into actually never leaving. Welcome to another Rags Riches Secrets. All right, today what we're going to talk about is, does unionizing Amazon trap workers into poverty? And when I look at this, part of the reason I ask this question is I know that people are deeply passionate, they care, they're like, I want to create a union, and you see unions all across the entire United States. So I'm going to talk about 3 elements of this you ought to consider before you do this. And the reason we're talking about this is on this podcast, when I take and I do these videos and this content, I'm talking, this is the Rags Riches Secrets. I'm showing you paths that will cause you to get stuck, and I'm showing you paths to prosperity and wealth. Therefore, you can look at these things, analyze it, and make decisions so you do not get pigeonholed and stuck in a trap, okay? So let's take a look at number 1. So number 1, you're probably never gonna find a multi-millionaire Amazon worker that's walking around on that floor. You're probably not gonna find it. So if you're looking for prosperity, you just gotta know up front, they're not likely walking around down on that floor, okay? And so here's what number 2 is. Number 2 comes with 3 very important elements, okay? And these are human psychological elements that we know come into play just because you're a human, okay? So the very first thing that comes into play is sunk costs. When you get inside one of these unions, like the longer you stay inside these positions, the more you move up in seniority. Your pay gets bigger, you move up in seniority, and then you're like, oh, cool, I got seniority. See, now you got sunk costs in it, and now you're finding it harder to walk away. But because you're finding it harder to walk away, now the next thing that comes into it is your commitment to that decision, that initial decision, becomes even tighter. And so all of a sudden, these guys are like, think of a string wrapped around something. Like take string and wrap it around your fingers, and your fingers like one string. Not a big deal, right? But all of a sudden, you start wrapping it around. It's like, oh, I've been here so long. I've been here forever. Now I've got sunk costs. Well, I can't get out because I don't want to give up. I don't want to break my commitment because I've been here so long. I don't want to lose what I've got. And so now you got this element of fear coming into place, and the fear of loss. And so now you're going to stay more consistent, and now you're weaving in layer upon layer upon layer. Sunk costs, that's a human psychological thing, like fear of loss, commitment, consistency, and all these things come into it, which will then trap the person into actually never leaving, okay? I know what this is like. I worked at Raytheon Missile Systems. I had a really good job. I was a senior material program manager is what they called me. Okay, as a material program manager, here's what they did. They got me up to a salary that was good enough. I wasn't living the good life, but I wasn't dying, okay? I was making enough to get by. Okay, here's what I know. I got up to 6 weeks of vacation. It was kind of hard because they got the 6 weeks of vacation. It's hard for me to walk away. Then next thing you know, I got a pension. Then I got a 401k. So you take those 3 things, beautiful traps to help make my life a little bit better, but beautiful traps because if I lose or if I leave my position, I get to do a reboot. I lose the pension because they no longer do that anymore. I lose the 6 weeks of vacation, so I get down to a reboot where I have to refigure out a company that would give me vacation. So then you get stuck in this eternal trap. It happened to my dad. He had like 2 months of vacation in a low-paying job, and he couldn't leave. Like he wanted to play so bad that he didn't care that he didn't have any money. So he got trapped in this thing because they gave him 2 months of vacation. And I look at him like, oh. Like, I just spent 2 weeks in Hawaii, okay? I didn't get anybody's permission. I didn't ask anything. We went down there. We went snorkeling. I went surfing. We did go undersea in this little scuba thing or whatever so we could see the things down below. So that's kind of like snorkeling, okay? We did zip lines. We went to like remote beaches where you have to get a reservations. Like we did all kinds of really fun things, okay? But you can't it's very difficult to do that if you get locked into one of these 9-to-5 jobs that just don't pay much, okay? So that comes into play. The third thing that comes into play is you struggle to level up your skills because like when you're there on the floor, the longer you're there, the more security that you have because you're protected. I've got seniority. So if anybody gets laid off, you're going to chop off all the bottoms and the top stay. Therefore, you get locked into this thing of seniority or to be protected. And so in the end, you don't gather any significant skills. Like I ran into this very problem. Like when I was in high school, I went and I started bagging groceries it was at Albertsons at the time. Like how many people could bag groceries? Like anybody, right? I had that job. I had another job washing dishes. Like how hard is it to find somebody that can wash dishes? Those were not skills that were highly sought after and paid well for. And as a result, it caused me not to prosper. That's what these guys are running into. And you can see this. When I was down in Tucson, Arizona, there was the Indian reservations right there. And you would think, because the government subsidizes them, sends them checks. Like when these kids, when they got to the age of 18, they got like $18,000 or $20,000. They got a chunk of money. But here's the deal. Because life was good and they had this handout, they actually lost some of the will to fight. And because they lost that, it was like it was impoverished. In fact, the only thing that actually had money was the casinos, but pretty much everything else was impoverished. And like you'll see this. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Millionaire Next Door. This book is absolutely outstanding because like when they went out and they started trying to figure out who the millionaires are, they thought the millionaires were all these different people that look really cool, flashy and all this stuff, only to discover that they actually were not the real millionaires. The real millionaires actually happened to be the millionaire next door. You know, at the time, this was written several years ago, so their average home was like $500,000, maybe slightly more than that. So in today's day, it's probably $1 million house, maybe slightly more than that. So they called them the millionaire next door because not everybody really realized how wealthy they were. But here's the thing that they discovered about millionaires, okay? Their children of millionaires were underachievers. Now you might be like, Mike, what do you mean underachievers? Okay, give you an example. The parents did not want the children to go through the exact same pain and suffering that it took them to be able to create the good life. And so what they did is they said, all right, we'll put you into college so you can be a doctor. And so when they got through medical school and they became a doctor, it was a good accomplishment, right? So now they're a high paid individual. But when they take doctor's pay compared to doctor's pay of rich people, the people that actually did not get handouts and didn't come from that wealthy family had substantially higher incomes than the children did of the wealthy millionaires. And so when you take lawyers, you had lawyers. Lawyers are like an average lawyer was making like, let's say the average is making like $300,000 a year, okay? These guys were coming in at like $200,000 a year. They were major underachievers in the realm of being lawyers. In fact, they found that the children of millionaires on the whole, collectively in every category except being a teacher, they actually underperformed. And they referred to what happens in this environment is to sustain the lifestyle that these kids became used to. They would get what they call economic outpatient care. They would refer to it like that because the children thought that these guys were actually slaying it when they actually weren't. And they discounted how much handout they're actually getting from mom and dad. And it was crazy at how that played out. And so when I point this out, and I bring this back to this Amazon stuff, is these guys are attempting to enshroud themselves in security. But in an effort to do that, they're actually entrapping themselves in poverty. Like I bring these things up because there's paths to success and there's paths to failure. And this is one where you can easily find yourself on a path to failure. Like here's a path to success, okay? I did a post on Instagram just yesterday, okay? I have a client. He's generating on Amazon. He got an Amazon store. It's an automated store. $807,000 a month revenue. Like this dude got the good life. And not all business opportunities are created the same. And this is what I mean. On his automated Amazon store, he doesn't manage it. He doesn't have to figure out the sourcing of the product. He doesn't have to do any of the logistics to run his store. We actually manage the entire store for him. And he gets to just ring the cash register. Now, there's some businesses you could get where, like, let's just say you buy a McDonald's. And let's just say that you work inside the McDonald's. Well, you are now the manager. You're now possibly the hamburger flipper. Like you may end up wearing all of those jobs because that very well might not be a done for you service. Or let's say you got a construction company or a landscape company. You're probably out there digging holes in the ground and you're working it to death, okay? That's a path to the good life, but I can just tell you you're gonna suffer a lot along the path. There's not every opportunity is created the same. Like that's one of the reasons I like those Amazon stores is because it's a done for you. Just allow the investment to compound. one of the reasons like Warren Buffett loves stocks. Because like if you ask Warren, when he was younger, he actually got a job working in a grocery store for his grandpa, and his grandpa made him work hard. And he's like, dude, he's like, this sucks. He's like, I hate it. And then he was down there at the train station throwing 50-pound bags of wheat inside this thing. And he's like, I was there like a half day, 10 minutes or something like that. He's like, I tried to pick up those bags. He goes, those things were heavy. He was like, this sucks. Turns around and he walks home. He's like, I'm not doing this. And so he started buying stocks in companies where he looked at, identified talent, recognized who had the ability. And he's like, I made money sitting on my butt, betting on other people's output. There's other ways of making money that create a better life. We need people to be on the Amazon floor working. So like, good for you. If you want that trap, climb in it, jump in it, whatever. Because like, hopefully that makes you happy, because telling you I'm in pursuit of the good life and I don't want it. I'm not gonna have anything to do with it. Anyway, so things to consider. If you're trying to figure out how to get your Amazon store set up, go to 𝗤𝗡𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is another Rags Riches Secrets, and I will talk to you later.